hear you.
Oh, thanks.
And you can start.
All right. Guess we'll start with a word of prayer. Lord, I ask that you be with us and this fellowship that we have and this Bible study that we have, and that you guide us through your word and let it reveal to us what you intended it for it to say. And Lord, I also ask that you be with Paul and the doctors tomorrow. Help them find whatever the cause or whatever this may be, and hopefully a quick, simple fix. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay. So 19, 20, and 21. I guess first let's read through it. Anybody want to read their version of it?
Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. And 21 also.
21, yeah.
Therefore put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness an implanted word, which is able to save your souls.
Okay. And then I have in ASB, it says, "This you know, my beloved brethren, but everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. Therefore, putting aside all filthiness and all that remains of wickedness, in humility receive the word implanted, which is able to save your souls." Anybody have a different reading? Oh. Okay. Well, the notes I got when I was reading through, I kind of dissected it. Well, I guess first I should ask, does anything stand out to anybody? Does anything kind of catch your eye or catch your attention?
It's one of those verses that you hear everybody say all the time. Be slow to speak, slow to anger, quick to listen.
Quick to listen, yeah. Anybody else notice anything in there?
The anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a verse speaking to somebody with like a temper.
Yeah. Also, that was, from what I gathered, is actually a common Jewish saying. It was pretty common among them, like just that. It was this, everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. And that was actual, something that they had, like a saying that they had all known. Like that was a saying that they knew from just their group or whatever. And so it says, "This you know, my beloved brethren," like basically you've heard this, now apply it basically he's saying you must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger, because he wants you to listen to what he's saying, what has to be said. He wants you to be slow to speak, so he wants you to think about what you're about to say and mull it over, ponder what you're going to say. Is it really something that needs to be said, or should I say, or whatever? Is it going to honor God? And then slow to anger, because as it says in verse 20, the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God. What do they mean by that, like the righteousness of God?
It doesn't bring about his will.
No.
It doesn't bring about what he wants.
Right.
For me, I just want to share something that like last I think it was like last, I don't know what month this is right now, March. So it must have been like last July or August or something. It seems like I was playing Clue with my kids, and y'all might have heard, some of y'all might have heard me say this before, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I was playing Clue with my kids, and it was a version of Clue that's the Disney characters. And we were playing, and they got out, and they picked characters for everybody. And my youngest, Tristan, he picked out Pete for me. And I was like, I hate Pete. And he's like a jerk, It's like, why'd you pick him for me? And he said, because you're always angry. So for me, Man, that like just, I mean, just devastated me,
Yeah.
you know, so, and immediately that verse, James 1:20 came to my mind. The anger of man does not bring about the righteousness of God.
Right.
And so that's like always burned in my mind, like him saying that, just with his honest personality and saying that to me. You know, and I don't feel like I'm exceptionally an angry person, but, you know, I'm
Yeah.
definitely harsh and, you know, definitely have my moments of being angry for sure. But that's what, you know, I just really think about like over and over and over, like, you know, being, you know, when I act in anger, if I'm angry, or even being, like having a harshness to me, where I'm not, where I lack compassion and grace, that it definitely, it doesn't draw my kids to the Lord. It's not bringing about His will. It's not showing who the Lord is. So, anyway, just sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like road rage when you're driving down the road, somebody cut you off.
Yeah, it's not, it's not righteous at all, is it?
No. I mean, I'm getting better.
When I was looking through, it says righteousness could be taken two ways: is as God's actual moral purity, His reliability, His acts, you know, the righteousness of God, and how He was, and then there was like His gifts, the righteousness as the gifts of God. And it was saying it could be taken either way, but the way I only found it is just as the moral purity of the acts. So anger is not going to lead you to acting that way, because anger of man, it's an impulsive thing. It's just something we do. We don't think through it. We just act out of impulse.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else stand out to anybody in those first couple of verses?
No, I mean, I see too, like in here, he's saying to, the anger of man doesn't bring about the righteousness of God, and so he says, therefore, putting aside all filthiness. So he's talking about anger,
Mm-hmm.
and he says, so therefore, put it aside. But he didn't just say put aside anger, he says put aside filthiness.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's,
And
kind of describes anger as just this vile thing.
yeah, and filthiness, when they say putting aside, and there's also another verse that says strip away, or I had it somewhere here. Strip away, cast aside, take off. Basically, they're saying it's referring to when you cast off your clothes and you put on new garments. You're getting rid of all the filthiness and all the disgustingness that is sin. You're getting rid of all of it. And then he goes on to say, and the remains of wickedness, or I don't remember what your version said. There's also another version that says the abundance of sin, which is actually what it translates to from the Greek, which is, I don't know if I'm saying this right, parousia. The word is parousia, and it actually translates to abundant. So when it says put aside all filthiness and all the abundance of wickedness, basically they're saying your moral side, your filthiness, and your morality, everything that's filthy and disgusting and sinful about you, and then the abundance of sin, everything else that's going to tempt you or you're going to desire in a sinful way. Because it says remains, that it's kind of a misleading thing there, because it's saying that there's just a little bit left after you get rid of whatever you have. And in reality, sin's endless. Temptations are endless, and it's always going to be attacking you. If you beat it one way, it's going to come back at you from another angle. It's never going to stop. So it's an abundance of sin. So he's telling you, put aside all of it, cast it all away.
I studied through the book of Ephesians for quite a long time, and I think it's like maybe in Ephesians 4, where Paul's talking and he says to take off your old nature and to put on your new nature.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Ephesians 4, but when he says that, I'm positive about this though, when he says that, he's talking about this once for all change that, and it's this picture too of the wardrobe, just like what you were just talking about, that when he says to take off this old and put on the new, he's talking about a once for all change that happens and occurs, and you can't go between, you can't, one day decide, okay, I'm gonna put back on the old man, and then, okay, I'm gonna take that off, and I'm gonna put on the new man, okay, I'm gonna take that off, and I'm gonna put this back on over here. He's talking about a once for all change that's supposed to happen. And so it ties in exactly what you're talking about when he says to cast this off, to put it aside. It's the same thing what Paul's talking about, that this is supposed to be what we walk in, this is supposed to be how we live, it's supposed to be this thing where it's totally removed from us, and we're walking in this new creation, this new creature. So, good stuff.
You just made me think of, you know, how you toss the old away, live in the new. Sometimes the old just will come out instantly. For example, like just stubbing your toe. Well, it'll come out quick, and then you just can't control it sometimes.
That slow to speak part.
It's hard for me, and that's where I find myself. You know, I've tripped over stuff in my sister's room, and words will flip.
Mm-hmm.
I find it's the hardest thing to control.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like those times when the root that's there will really, comes out, but it's slow over time, just, I think I guess that comes down to like, how are we to put on this new man and walk in this new life to where we can be renewed and transformed so that we can continue to have our character changed and those habits broke, and that comes back into knowing the Word and spending time in the Word, spending time in fellowship and Bible study, to where you're pouring over so much of it that eventually those small habits you're putting so much new in you that those other things begin to be pushed out. I read a book a long time ago, and I don't mean to share so much, but I read a book a long time ago by this guy I think he was a preacher back in the 1920s or something, but I don't really remember how he said it and everything, but he talked about like a tree, and like that as the tree grows, it has new leaves that come out, and he was talking about how a lot of times a Christian will be like, all of a sudden they'll come to know who the Lord is, or they'll all of a sudden they'll want to be like, okay, well now I have to stop cussing, and I have to stop doing this, and I have to stop doing this, and I have to stop doing this, and they set up all these parameters and all these rules that they feel like that they need to follow, but they're doing it because it's a system they feel like they have to follow, instead of letting the Lord fill them and then being transformed from the inside and naturally pushing those things out of their life. And a person that goes, because he was saying like a tree doesn't just like glue leaves to it. It naturally comes from what's inside the tree. This oak tree naturally produces oak leaves. And so he was, it was really good what he was talking about. But a lot of times we'll sit there and be like, well, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. But we can't follow all those rules.
Right.
So it comes, back to this thing, this where we spend our time and what are we putting inside so that it can naturally indwell in us
The seed.
and begin to push those things out.
Right, planting the seed and letting it grow.
Yeah. So, anyways, just more good stuff.
Something I thought was interesting is 12 through 18 is all one big paragraph. It's all bunched together, and then you have these two, which is 19 and 20 together, that don't really, it's valuable words, the valuable things that are said. It's just, it doesn't really entirely fit with everything. It just says, this my beloved brethren, that must be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. Anger man is not achieve the righteousness of God. And it's just kind of thrown in there. It seems like the middle, and it's like two verses that just at first seem that they just seem to be thrown in there, and then I guess as you break them down, you look at it, and then obviously as we've broken down the rest of James so far, it fits in pretty well. Because when I first read across it, I was like, why is that in there? Because it just seemed out of place.
I mean, from 19 to 22, it's a one Greek sentence. So
Okay.
you're correct.
Then after that, see you have, therefore, putting aside all filthiness and all remains of wickedness, humility, receive the word implanted, which is able to save your souls. It goes back to the word implanted, like a tree, like a seed, in the ground. It's got to grow. Basically, the word implanted, it's naturally embedded in you, and then you have this desire to follow the word just wholeheartedly. Just because that's you from the core. You want to follow it. And then, let's see. Anything else stick out in there for anybody?
I think that just kind of goes along with what I was saying a minute ago, what Jason was bringing out about just having that thing inside you that it's able to push those things out. Receive the word and plant it that's in you. Continue to dwell on it and take it inside you so that you're able to cast out this filthiness. So for me, that I'll be honest, like the last several months, it's been a lot harder for me to spend time in the Word.
Too busy.
Yeah, honestly, I'm up like at, I go to the gym, hit the gym in the morning, I get back, man, I rush to get out to the job site, and I'm like, it's going crazy. And I get home like at 7 o'clock at night, and it's like, I'm spent, I'm so tired, and then it's the same thing again tomorrow, the next day, and it's really affects me where I'm not spending the time in the Word like I need to.
Yeah, and when you're beat, it's hard to spend time because you don't get anything out of it.
Yeah.
You're just too tired, can't
Just reading
concentrate.
through it, and it's just words.
Yeah, it is.
That's what I had the first couple times I read through it. It's just words. In verse 21, it also says, "In humility, receive the word implanted." Now, why do we think that they use the word humility there?
And you're saying 21?
Yeah, in 21, it's not the beginning of it, it's in the middle of 21.
Before implanted in the word.
Right.
I'll take a stab at it, just that I think maybe when I'm just processing through reading it, I'm thinking about the fact that there has to be a humbleness to us. It reminds me of Isaiah, we looked at Isaiah 66, 1 and 2 this last week, where God says, "Heavens are my throne, the earth is my footstool, where then is a place you can, house you can build for me, and a place I can rest my head." But he goes on and says, "But to this one I'll look, to him who is humble and contrite of spirit, and who trembles at my word." And so it just makes me think about that there has to be a humbleness to us, and realizing our position and where we're at in relation to God. That's just kind of what comes to my mind. It's just this humbleness that has to be to us.
Yeah. And you can't teach pride. Pride's just a wall.
Yeah, there you go. That's really good though. Well, really, really good. Because when you're prideful, like what he's saying, you can't receive the word. Period.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, it goes on to say that you cannot correct a fool. And then Proverbs tells you that prideful man is a fool.
Yeah, when I was reading through it, that word stuck out to me, in humility. And the reason it stuck out, I guess, is James and his little his way of writing, how every word seems to count. It's just in humility receive the word implanted. He's not telling you just receive it and take it as a gift. He's telling you in humility. So humbly take it as a gift, basically, the word implanted. So humbly, if you give something to someone who's humility, or who's humble about it, like feeding the homeless, or you donate to somebody off on the side of the street, you give them money or something like that, and they're real humble about it, your humility, but they're awful, kind of shameful about it. They don't want to take it all, or whatever. Some of them are, and that's like they don't deserve it, and that's the way I saw it. It's in humility receive the word. So we don't exactly deserve what he's gifting to us, what he's given to us there. So you take the gift, but be humble about it, because we don't by any means accept, deserve it.
Right.
I just wanted to just point out something you just said that, just like powerful to me, is that you just said that in James's way of writing, where every word counts.
Yeah.
I mean, that's powerful.
Well, because
I mean,
so
it's
far,
true.
I mean,
I mean,
from the first couple of weeks, you know, I've said it, like, if we could underline everything, if everything could be bold, you know, it should be, because he's making every single word here count, and he's picking every word
that's good.
to a point, you know, he's picking them all to know, you know, for exactly what he wants to say.
Mhm. His composition style is much like
Derby
Peter's,
James.
much like, not like Paul's. Paul wrote in a sense that was extremely compositionally skilled. Yeah. He's blunt and to the point, moves from point to point, like Peter does. Same thing.
Okay, and, anything else stick out to anybody on the last verse there, 21?
Did you already talk about implanted?
Hadn't quite got there yet. Well, we did.
Well, that kind of gives the impression that, you know, it's gonna grow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, that's, you know, you don't start off, you know, it's just like in God's word, you don't start off knowing everything. It takes time, it's gotta grow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which, like you said, we spending time in the Word. That's what you gotta do there. You don't just wake up, change old habits. You know, you gotta grow in it.
It'd be super cool though if that really happened. You're like, chadow, and you're like, just
As easy as changing your clothes, like I said. Well, I guess we can go, since you said it was all one sentence, we can go on to 22. Prove yourself doers of the word and not merely hearers who delude themselves. Since it's all one sentence, that's all going to be
Mhm.
together. So basically, he's saying, as he said, the whole, you know, you got to do it. You can't just pretend and fool yourself. You have to actually carry it out.
It's kind of like thinking more of yourself than you really should.
Which goes back to that pride, that wall you put up with pride.
But personally, I'm very humble and proud of it.
I really don't have a whole lot of.
Hmm?
No, but this is one of the things we get on to our kids about. I told you to clean your room, and you heard me, but you didn't do it. And he says, see what I have to put up with?
It's like the old expression, lip service.
You know,
That's basically all I got.
I mean, I think like on 22, I think there's a lot there to chew on. I mean, the part that I just comes to me like over and over and over is hearers who delude themselves, hearers who delude themselves. And I just sit there and think about, man, when I'm not doing the word and I'm sitting here, you know, living the word, and I think that I'm, you know, doing good, that I'm just a person who's, you know, have this false concept. I'm just a hearer who has deluded myself into thinking that I'm something that I'm not. And then when you tie this, that, you know, that it's on the tail end of him talking about the anger of man, I don't think it's coincidental, you know, for a man who's, you know, such few words, and it's one sentence in the Greek, that he goes from, you know, talking about anger, the anger of man not to bring about the righteousness of God, and then he talks about living out the word and being a doer of the word, not someone who deludes himself. And I think like, and so what that makes me think too, just like speaking out loud, is times when, I might drive down the highway and I might not, road rage, like what Jason was saying, I might not sit there and flip somebody off, but, I'd definitely be honest and tell you, like, I definitely have the ill thoughts towards people, and I definitely think stuff in my mind, and I might not speak it all out loud, but that's still anger that's rising up in me. And, just because I didn't flip somebody off doesn't mean I'm not struggling with anger. It doesn't mean that and it's real easy to be a person who does delude themselves, because I sit there and would think, well, I didn't flip him off, so I must be doing really good.
Yeah, pointing at him and.
Yeah.
Well, some of that goes to how much do you think about it. Is it a passing thought, or are you entertaining this? If you start entertaining it, that's when you start bordering on having done it anyway. But if you can just let it pass on by, it's no big deal. Because everybody has to let things pass by. To say, well, I'm never tempted, that's like saying, well, I'm better than Jesus because he was tempted. So everybody has those thoughts. It's what you do with those thoughts. That's what matters. And it is better if somebody else tells you how great you are, not yourself.
But going back to what you said, you made me think of that when you said it. Delude themselves, you thought you were doing well and everything, and your kid picked out Pete for you.
That's right.
And then it
100%.
goes back to, maybe the anger is kind of showing through after all.
Because you know what I said to him? I said, do you know how good I know my Bible? I probably thought about it for a minute, but somewhere in there.
Something that goes through all these, I missed the first couple because we're waiting on Cordelia, was running late, but, these are things you gotta do. I don't know whether y'all probably brought that point out, but these are things that you have to do. You can't do them part of the time or most of the time. You have to do it all of the time.
Right, not just in church, but when we go driving down the
Yeah.
road.
I'll tell you something,
Yourself.
I'll tell you a personal belief I have, is that when you should be the most godly person is when you're totally by yourself, because then you're doing it for God, you're not doing it for somebody else. But if you can do all those things when you're by yourself, then you're actually doing them for God. And you're not doing them for the person sitting next to you or somebody sitting across from you to make a good impression. If you can do it when you're by yourself, then you're doing it for God.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So you should be on your best behavior when there isn't anybody but God to see.
Anything else?
Did y'all talk about righteous indignation? Jesus got angry, God gets angry.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference between good anger and bad anger is, are you doing it because somebody got you mad, or are you doing it because somebody else is being treated wrong? What's causing you to become angry? And anger can be a very good thing. Matter of fact, anger is a motivational thing. If you don't get angry about something, you won't do nothing.
Right.
And you see somebody doing like Jesus, seeing all those people being taken advantage of by those money changers and selling stuff and everything. If Jesus had never gotten angry, he'd have never done anything, and they'd have just kept on doing like they were. So even Jesus, there's a time to get angry about stuff, but he didn't get angry when they was nailing him to the cross. He got angry about other people not treating people right, or not treating God right.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you gotta take it on the chin, but you don't have to do it for somebody else's. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I know personally, if you don't get mad, you see some injustice taking place. If you don't get mad, you ain't gonna do nothing.
Yeah.
There's a time for mad. It's a great motivator.
Mm-hmm.
I just think for the majority of us in here, though, 99% of the time, the anger that we have isn't from.
Yeah, it's not a good.
It's
I don't
probably
know
not
that it's
righteous
a good thing.
indignation, but.
Yeah, it's like.
I mean, there is definitely that there is an element, but I think that we got to be careful. I mean, I just want to call it what it is. Most of us, 98% of the time, are in sin because of anger, because it's unrighteous anger.
And isn't that's kind of like a bad seed that you're planting if you get angry at this. Then then I don't know. I'm driving down the road and somebody cuts me off and I flip them off. That's acting on that anger
You've let somebody make you mad.
Well, no, not me, but,
Well, I'm just saying, what
Yes,
I'm
but
saying
I'm-
is, you let somebody get to you.
yes, yeah, and that's where I'm like, cause I drive a lot, and I have to watch out for that right there, cause I'm like, I don't know what's going on in there. What, they might have not have seen me, or, you know what I mean?
That could be, it
But-
just.
But that's, I have to be slow right there and go, whoa, wait a minute, not so, boom, what are you doing, you know what I mean?
Think.
It is, it's all about that, and that's what I gotta catch. So when I'm driving down the road, I'm not just throwing the bird up in the air, I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on with them right now, back off. So then I'm getting better, but so that's the seed right there where 6-7 months ago, I was like angry, breaking on them, and
Here's something I think before you speak, you should
Brake
think
check.
before you.
yes, yeah.
You should just think before you do anything.
Yes,
really.
yes, but that's where coming to this and church and everything is sharpening me to be a better person. So
Sure.
God is doing work in me,
As you're feeling.
and instead of flipping them off, and I kind of wave at them and letting people over and stuff. It's wild.
But just- and it- I like that idea of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, or I'll slow down. I'll see them coming over, and I'll slow down a little bit and let them over, and maybe they'll have a better day, or you know what I mean?
And as like it's talking about, if you take the time to do that, be quick to hear, slow to speak, you can be slow to anger.
Yes, exactly, and that's. But yeah,
But you can't, if you don't take the time to listen or to think about something, you just act, you open the door for anger to come in.
right, and I think it's better. I feel better when I'm not all
Yeah, you feel
intense
better later
driving.
if you react to it,
Right.
let somebody have you for that second.
Right,
It's a lot worse than if you just back off and just calm down
Yeah.
and think, now I've taken the high road.
right,
And slowly over time, as you, like, using the example of driving, slowly over time, as you're able to, process and be able to give it that time, you see how it begins to pour over into other areas of your life where like, oh, I'm not blowing up my kids like I used to.
Right.
Speaking from my life.
right,
Oh, I'm not blowing up like I used to. Okay, I'm not as angry about this. Okay, I'm able to control this more, more areas.
Right.
So,
That's why you shouldn't compartmentalize your life. Some of these people will say, oh, I do this on Sunday, but during the week I have to do that, they're compartmentalizing their lives.
that's kind of what
It's
the
gotta be,
tree you're
it's gotta
talking
be,
about.
it's gotta be all or nothing. That's when, if God was gonna say, he's gonna say, you're either in or you're out. It's all or it's nothing. This half and half, or part of the week I'm with God, and part of the week I'm with me. No, it's either all or nothing.
that's right. Once for all change, completely putting the other aside. We talk about that.
It's all or nothing. You don't change, it talks about taking off the old person and putting on the new person. You don't take off the old person, put on the new person on Sunday, put on the old person on Monday, and then put him back up. No, it's a one-time deal.
Yeah, even if I'm having a bad day now, I'm not so, you know what I mean? I'm just,
You know, when I'm gonna fill in for Paul
Yeah.
on Monday doing Romans, and one thing Paul always talks about is being a bond servant, which actually, Jeff can tell you, it actually means bond slave. We've been bought at a price, we're slaves. Jesus is our master. And how often do we look at it that way? And another thing I like too is Paul is always careful to call people saints. And you are a saint. And saints act differently than sinners do. Because you're no longer a sinner saved by grace, you're a saint who sins, and that's not how a saint's supposed to react. So when you think, I always like the way he always makes it a point to tell those believers that they're saints, because he's trying to impress upon you who you are. You don't get to act like you used to, sorry.
I mean, it's really a good way to put it, though. I mean, you really don't have that choice anymore because you are one with him now. You have his likeness. That's what's been given to us, is his likeness. And because we're one with Christ,
He owns you.
we don't have that luxury to want to do it. We're where we have to work towards adopting this new nature. So.
I often think that's why Paul talks about pray about everything. Everything as you go through your whole day, you should be praying about everything. And that guy cuts you off in traffic, you should be praying about it. And if you go to God and pray about it, like you're supposed to, you're not gonna do anything, but you're gonna think to yourself, well, I don't know what his problem is, but I'm gonna back off and give him room.
Right.
And just let him go.
Right.
Because you start praying about it, what should I do, God? God will tell you, back off and let him go.
Right.
Don't become part of his problem.
Right. Being the problem, that's what I'm like trying not to be now, is the problem.
If you pray about that situation, if you pray about everything, your whole attitude's gonna change. That's why he said, pray for your enemies.
Right,
That guy cut you off, he's, well, theoretically, for a few seconds, he was an enemy, so pray for him.
right,
We were talking about, I think it was in here, we were talking about, sin. Well, our thoughts give birth to sin, give birth to so
Right.
on, and it goes all the way to death, same thing with anger, it's, you get angry too quickly, then you cut them off, you brake check them, whatever.
right, and then it gets, well, it could be worse. It
Car
could be-
pile up and
Yeah.
somebody could die,
Right,
and just because, you got a
anger,
little anger, just
Yep.
because someone cuts you off, or you had to make the exit, they've never been this way before, or
right,
something like
right,
that,
right, I don't know what they're going through.
Right, yeah. I actually had to stop and look at it that way when I was doing long drives to Hillsborough every day for school. Got cut off quite a few times.
Right,
So,
right,
but,
And if you're gonna cut somebody off, don't have a bumper sticker on the back that says, I love Jesus.
Or the name of your company. Because people call the main line and say, there's this guy in a gray truck.
And there's only one in the parking lot.
Are you still driving? Are you behind me?
No, honestly, one time I was driving my car.
because it's your number.
Yeah. And it was when I was driving that gray truck, and the lady calls, and the phone's recorded me, and she was like, y'all have some idiot driving a tan truck? And I'm like, no ma'am, no tan trucks for us, because it's gray. I didn't like it. It's gray. So anyway, there you go. So,
We forget God knows everything you do.
that's right.
yes, yes,
One takeaway for me in this, and I just feel like it's good to say, is like when you cover a topic like this, or something like anger that everybody struggles with on some level, and you look at what Scripture's speaking about it and what the command is for us in our life, that how we're supposed to adopt this, that he calls it anger, filthiness, and wickedness or vileness. That it doesn't bring about the righteousness of God. I mean, it's a heavy thing. It's real easy to walk away from it feeling like, man, I am like so far away from where I'm supposed to be. I mean, I know that's how even like right now, I kind of feel for me like, man, struggling, far from where I know I want to be. And so I would just share that just honestly from myself. But then also just encouragement that, this is a walk, it's a lifelong process that we're all supposed to be walking through. We never get to where we just, fully arrive in every aspect of what the Christian life looks like. But if you're anything like me, where anger is a part of your personality, it's real easy to struggle with it. So I just want to encourage you or anybody in here that might be feeling like I'm feeling, just to remember that God's grace and mercies are new every day, and that He gives us today to seek Him out. And He's given us this lesson today to remind us that we're supposed to be filled with the Word, and the Word's supposed to be implanted in us, and we're supposed to be taking the Word into us so we can be pushing out those things that aren't what He's about. And if you're struggling with anger like I am, then that means you might not be putting the Word in like you're supposed to be. So.
Well, everybody struggles with something, whatever it is, maybe. Actually, homosexuality is something that people struggle with. They struggle with anger, they struggle with all kinds of things. What you have to do is realize, I gotta work harder in this area.
And then it goes back to,
So you need to take stock of your weaknesses and work on them.
goes back to when it says in 21, the abundance of wickedness, or the remainder of wickedness, and it says some places.
Yeah, it says, and who has to do that?
It's he's basically saying that it attacks from all angles. You beat it one way, and it's going to come at you another way.
That's right.
So even though you may struggle with, someone may struggle with homosexuality, someone may struggle with pornography, someone may struggle with anger, somebody struggles with this and that, but once they attack that specific point and and they beat that point for themselves, it's gonna find another way to attack you.
That's kinda like,
Find another side to attack on.
the movie we watched, he said that he has like or maybe this is, I don't know where I'm getting this from now.
Maybe it was a dream.
Anyways, but the devil basically is watching us to see where we mess up, kind of like football players watch the plays to see where the team's messing up, and so he's just watching reels and seeing where you're weak at, and then he goes to attack that area.
Yeah.
So if he's stringing that up, he's going to go back to the reels and keep watching it, and so you just kind of got to know where he's going to be.
Right.
So
Yeah, you are being watched.
Yeah,
Not necessarily in a good way.
no, right? He's waiting for you to fail and to be there, so you can
We're always being
just
watched.
trip you up a little bit further. You know what I mean? So
We're always being watched by at least two people, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah. Scriptures also say that if you resist him, he'll flee. He just goes somewhere else.
But he'll be back.
Yeah, that's what it was. It wasn't him himself that like a demon. He has a demon watching
Yeah.
you. I guess that wasn't last week. I don't know where I got that from now.
I know where you're getting it from. I thought it was it up there on the thing?
Yeah, he was talking about you have
Okay.
Like highlights and
an
stuff?
evil angel assigned to you.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. I was thinking.
I was like,
I am
it
having
sounds familiar.
dreams.
And they just like the good angels have a network, the bad ones do too.
Right.
And they can feed that information
Yes.
back to so and so and so.
I was
What do
thinking.
I
I
do?
don't know where I got that.
I thought he was talking about a movie. It's like, we watched the movie out here? I
Yeah, Tony Evans is.
Yeah. Tony Evans.
Yeah.
Well, the Bible talks about the angels are, nobody knows how many there are, they're beyond count. And a third of them back in Satan, so he's got plenty to go around. And I've often thought of all the things in the world, the thing that would turn him most against God would be us, because God plans for us are to be above the angels. Can you imagine the angels sitting around thinking, yep, that's gonna be in charge of me someday? That was probably the biggest dividing factor in them. And so they not only were divided over us, they hate us. Hey. Oh, she does, okay. So they undoubtedly hate us more than we can begin to understand. Well, gentlemen, now use the term loosely.
Thanks.
What?
I understand.
See you, Jim. I think that's some good, really good stuff, man. Really, really good.
There are some places we need to be angry. Had the men especially gotten angry at what Washington has done to us long ago, we wouldn't have lost our country. But we wouldn't get angry enough to fight for it.
We could probably remind ourselves every 5, maybe every 10 minutes, be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Something easy to forget throughout the day.
Yeah.
Like on the hour, you go, wow, there's so many areas I just acted too quickly,
Or
or
even-
I missed what they were saying. Something. I'm not saying it'd be a great idea to write it down.
But they
something
even
to
had it
refer
written
to.
down somewhere, you read it in the morning, you look back over yesterday, or
Like a
Or
screenshot on
read it
your
now.
phone or something. Every
Yeah.
time you open your
Yeah.
phone.
every time you look at it, you're like, whoa. There's about 4 or 5 other times in this last hour that I could have applied that, and then eventually you after you do, or after you get angry or whatever, then you think right then,
Think right then, yeah.
that wasn't right.
I made my screensaver on my phone. I made it that picture of that piece from that game,
Oh,
so that I always
There you
remind
go.
myself of my
Beat, yeah,
there you go.
experience of my son saying that. So that's what my post screen is. Then I put that verse on there, so I always remember.
there you go.
So, but yeah, it's good stuff.
Anybody have anything else to add?
continue to encourage everyone just to really pull and see like what, you know, what application is there for me out of this for today. I mean, there's a lot of truth there and a lot of stuff that's really kind of hard hitting. I mean, you even got to, you know, what, you know, some people look at as like the key verse of the book, to be a doer and not merely just a hearer. And there's a lot of weight in all those handful of verses that you went over today. So it's just to really, you know, really process through what's application for me, what am I supposed to take from this today, and just where we not walk out of here and be like, well, that was really good, we went over some verses, and, you know, yeah, okay, I need to not struggle with anger. Okay, I'll deal with it later. You know, I mean, that's what most people's tendency would be, but, you know, really affect change and really, even going back to letting the word take root in us, it would be to process through what does that look like for me, and what does it look like beyond just being in here right now today, so that I can affect change in my life, you know.
Yeah, and in 19 and 20, he's saying, you know, you know this, you know, he's saying, you know the phrase, quick to hear, slow to speak. And he's saying that, and then he goes on the rest of it, saying, you know, receive the word and plant it, you know, basically receive like the seed and then grow it out and then push that throughout, you know. So basically he's saying it, you know the saying, now let's act on that saying, and I want you to listen to what I'm saying here. Think about it, because I mean he's talking to the Jews, you know, and he's talking to them, and they may not like some of what they're hearing of this. I mean, he's telling them, you know, listen, don't interrupt me or nothing like that, you know, just listen to what I'm saying, and then think about it, and then analyze yourself at this point.
Yeah, that's a good point too. He is speaking to the Jews in this context, in that day. So he's speaking to men that have received Christ. And in other words, they did what was right. And for it, everything is being taken away from them. And that's unjust. So no doubt James looked over at the men of his congregation and those that were being run off and run out of town, and they were angry about it.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
He said nobody has anything else to add. He goes and close it out.
You losing some weight?
This guy. Lord, thank you for the time we had together and our fellowship that we shared, and all the thoughts and the ideas and the word that you brought to us, and all the thoughts that we had about the word. And Lord, help us go throughout our days and throughout tonight, even and every day after, and help these verses weigh heavy on our mind, and everything we've learned so far, help us apply it in our life. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
All right, I'm assuming we pick up at 23
Yeah.
and go to where?
25. Next week's through 25. Probably touch on 22 just a little bit, because 23 kind of ties into it.
Mhm. Yeah, back up into it to get a running start. And who's up?
I think it's supposed to be me.
Do you have time?
Well, we'll see how that works out. Let you know Monday morning.
I see you out there all the time, walking around.
If you can't, don't
Most
let
time
me
when I
know
drive by,
Monday morning.
the truck's out there.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll cover it too, just in case you can't.
Okay. I'm really, I was really gonna pass it off, but I feel like after being in here today that it's important for me to try and get some time in
Okay.
order and kind of pour over it, so be good for me. So
All right.
I'm supposed to preach in a couple weeks too, though.
Wow.
So that'd be good. Fine.
Well, just don't show up either at the job site or your regular job next week. One of the two, let it go. That should work.
I understand, right?
Yeah. Of course, you'll have to turn your phone off.
Well, I'm just really hoping that after I get done with the that grade work and stuff,